right, so our next session is about entrepreneurs and how they collaborate together and create like economic vitality. And these, Eureka has a lot of artisans and entrepreneurs. And when we were talking about this subject, Dick Taylor chocolates immediately came to my mind. And Adam and Dustin are just full of energy, and I love the story of how they got into chocolate making. They're just very kind of jack of all trades and have lots of hobbies and things. And they weren't really into making chocolate, but their friend sent them a video because there was this cool like YouTube video, and they watched the video and were like, hey, let's give that a try. And so they tried it, and they've developed a really great company. They create ethically sourced and crafted chocolate, and as they've grown their company, they've asked for help from other small business owners and like advice, and they've also reached out and brought in other people that are also entrepreneurs, like Lynn Jones. She is currently printing their labels, but she also has a letterpress business. It's called Just My Type Letterpress, and she has opened up a print shop in one of the historic buildings, and then it grew into a retail shop, and now she has a retail shop and the print shop. And just the way that they interact and are continuing to grow their businesses is impressive. I like to turn it over to them so they can tell their stories and how they work together.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Lynn Jones's print shop section of her business. We are at Just My Type Letterpress, sitting in front of a beautiful old Heidelberg. And then across from us, what you guys can't see, is the original printing equipment that Dustin and I purchased to print our labels. There you go. That's the workhorse right there. Anyway, so we'll be talking a little bit about like that progression, how we got started in that. And I think just by a little way of introduction, my name's Adam Dick. I'm kind of the head chocolate maker. I do bean sourcing, things like that with Dick Taylor Chocolate. If you like the way the chocolate tastes, that's my area of expertise. And then this is my business partner, Dustin Taylor. Are you going to say anything?
Hello, well, you said my name. So hi, I'm Dustin Taylor, and I'm the creative director of Dick Taylor Chocolate. And so my brother's the artist who came up with all the illustration work and spend really hands-on process of creating the brand and the look, and it's all very localized and family oriented. And yeah, that's my aspect of the chocolate business. So we got Lynn
Jones, owner of Just My Type Letterpress, commercial printer for these guys, as well as for my own line of wholesale greeting cards, and have a retail stationery gift shop around the corner on the front side of this building. So yeah, should we kind of give them the history and how we started our businesses and how long we've known each other and all that?
Yeah, I think one thing that's cool that I like to just like start off with, I think Humboldt County is a wonderful place that seems to attract like a certain kind of person. I think Humboldt County attracts people that are really creative, but also people that have a real like can-do attitude. You know, we often describe ourselves as being behind the redwood curtain up here. So we're a little more like geographically isolated, a little more remote. We don't have all of the like creature comforts necessarily of like a bigger city or metropolitan area. So if we want something in Humboldt County, we sometimes have to figure out how to like make it ourselves, put it together ourselves, and those kind of things. So I think in this room and this collaboration is a lot about that, creative people that are like, well, I have some business issues that need to be solved, and so how can we work together to do that? So that's kind of like my little kickoff. But we'll go in and talk a little bit about the history and our relationship together, and go from there.
Yeah. So you guys met back in '97 at HSU, Humboldt State University, back when we all went there. Now it's Cal Poly Humboldt. And yeah.
Yes, we started, yeah, and I could tell a little bit. Dustin and I met in college. We both kind of had a initially like a love of music. We played in bands together, and both went to Humboldt State. And ironically, both of us graduated in degrees in recreation administration. Humboldt State has a great rec program. And we both
graduated. Nothing with that right now.
So we both graduated with that same degree, and we both went together. We both started working in the carpentry field. We were doing regular residential construction, building houses, things like that. But what really fascinated us was kind of this idea of, we like working with our hands. We like woodworking. We like vintage machines. We like really cool hand tools and hand planes. And that was kind of like what really motivated us. So kind of towards the end of our 12-year stint doing carpentry, we did a lot of cabinetry, a lot of architectural millwork, built a lot of furniture, restored some wood boats. So we just liked the idea of crafting things. And so, like as Lynn had said, in about 2010, a friend of Dustin's had passed us this video of these two guys that make chocolate in New York, and we thought, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. It was neat. I never considered how chocolate was made, where it came from, the backstory, none of that. And so to see the process kind of unfold in a real simple way, it was like, this is neat. And it sparked an interest. And just like you've got this can-do spirit in Humboldt County, like, I wonder if I can make some chocolate. I bet I could. So, not as a business plan, but more as just a hobby or this like kind of curiosity about the process. We bought some little like simple countertop grinding equipment. And Dustin and I started making chocolate in my laundry room. And that was about early in 2010. And, it was terrible chocolate, but it was different than what you could buy on the grocery store shelf. And so it kind of kept us experimenting. And, without the minute by minute details, eventually somebody tells you, oh yeah, you should sell this stuff. And we're like, yeah, that'll be a good idea. We'll start selling this chocolate. And so, that kind of very organically grew into this concept of like selling chocolate at our local farmers market. We kind of have this little local, mom and pop bean to bar operation.
But that was 2010, and we've actually been friends since like 2003.
Yeah.
So mainly when they were playing in a band together, and the band was practicing every week and playing every weekend, and that kind of stuff. But that's fallen by the wayside since chocolate's so popular now. So, and kids, so many kids later.
Yeah, we first met Lynn through a mutual college friend, and back when Dustin and I were still doing the carpentry gig, we actually built Lynn's home out in Blue Lake, and that was a really fun process. Lots of creative ideas that we were into, non-conventional type construction things, and Lynn was keen on that too. So we really felt like that was a good fit, and that was really kind of the first time that we.
And that's where you first met Steve and Amy Bonner, who Alchemy Distillery. They have Alchemy Construction. So you guys started doing finished carpentry for them as an independent contractor?
No, for them, we worked straight for them. Yeah.
Like hire us.
So they got a paycheck from Alchemy, which allowed you a little more free time to start making chocolate for real.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So when we started the chocolate business, it was like we would make chocolate on Mondays, and then we had this carpentry regular gig for the rest of the week. And, that grew and organically, and then eventually we had to quit the carpentry thing after about 2 years. I think we made chocolate full time.
It was also around that time that we built Lynn's house, that we were moving your print equipment around. Yep. So we're becoming hands-on acquainted with the different heavy pieces of equipment that Lynn had, and moving them to her garage, and she'd give us little tutorials. So
yeah, we just thought it was so cool, these giant pieces of cast iron that all these gears move and wheels turn, and it's like these kinetic motion sculptures. These old printing presses are super fun. And so, like Dustin said, we had the opportunity to move them several times now for Lynn. And I think because Dustin and I love machines, there's a little bit of like machinery envy. So as our chocolate business was growing and we were trying to figure out like what's our packaging going to be like, I think we always felt like, we always wanted it to portray a certain type of elegance. We wanted it to really evoke that idea of something being handcrafted. And so we knew from the beginning, like we need letterpress as for elements of our packaging. The hard part with letterpress is it's not the most inexpensive way to print something. And so it's still like really hands-on, very like labor intensive. So, like all logical people, Dustin and I felt like, well, if we can't afford to have to letterpress, we might as well just buy our own print shop. Seems like the most logical thing to do. So we went down to Oakland. I found this thing on Craigslist. We bought this whole print shop from this guy. and threw it all on a trailer and drove it back up here to Humboldt. We had never printed anything in our lives, but we were like, it's cheaper to buy this old vintage equipment, fix it up and use it than it would be to, you know, to hire somebody to print it. So that was like the initial logic behind that.
Yeah.
And as we were,
yeah,
set up in our garage, and as we were a growing small business, you know, we weren't at those volumes to order, you know, 10,000 of something to gain sort of volume pricing. So also trying to make a tiny business look much bigger than it was, you know, in that elegance and all those things. We looked for all those loopholes of how can we just do it ourselves to make this product stand out on, you know, store shelves nationally. By that time, we were selling our bars across the country, and so we knew we needed to stand out against much larger players. And so by being able to letterpress and print stuff ourselves, and it's just that next thing to learn. And luckily Lynn was here already to kind of give us a rough, here you go.
Yeah, so we got the machines all like running, and we're like, now what, Lynn? Come over and show us how to use them. We think they work. And so Lynn came over and gave us a little tutorial, and then Dustin, you know, was the one that did all the printing early on.
Yeah. So, I mean, these guys are so mechanically inclined that I didn't have to show them much. And honestly, my mentor down in Berkeley, he always says, well, I showed you enough not to hurt yourself. So, you know, it's been picking up stuff here and there. I learned how to do it in 1999. So by the time you guys needed to learn, like I was solidly in there and knew what I was doing. But yeah, so they print on all their own stuff for the first 5 years, whether it was on basically sheets of paper that then got folded by hand all around the bar, which was time consuming. Then they went to envelopes that are printed by a giant printer paper manufacturer in Denver. And now those envelopes get shipped out here by the pallet.
Yeah, pallets of envelopes.
Yeah, each box contains 1,000, and we print, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5,000 a day for these guys. And of course it's one color at a time. So if you've got a 2-color envelope, then you print the first color one day and you wait for it to dry, then print the second color the next day, and then they're ready to go down to the factory and be shipped full of chocolate bars. They have the best part of the job, really, when they're handling these envelopes, the chocolate end of stuff. But
and I really do want to say, like, I mean, this is kind of something that we were talking about as we were, you know, kind of thinking about ideas and concepts for this. The one great thing that has been so nice about this collaboration, and Dustin touched on it earlier, is, you know, early on, we didn't have the ability to buy like, you know, 10,000 envelopes of each one of our SKUs because we weren't selling that much volume. And so what printing with Lynn and collaborating with Lynn allowed us to buy, we designed packaging that was essentially, you know, it had some printed elements from this manufacturer in Denver, but then largely it was blank. And so we could then buy large volumes of these, you know, blank generic envelopes, and then Lynn could print those kind of as we needed them. And so the great part about that is we were able to early on enjoy some of those volume discounts that come from buying things in larger volumes, but not having to commit to buying like, you know, 20,000, 30,000 envelopes of one SKU, and that might last us, you know, at that point, a couple of years. So that was
huge.
Yeah, it was huge for us.
all right, so I'm going to show you some examples here. Here's a simple envelope with one color printing on there. It's the colored peanut butter part that's letterpress printed on there. And I wish I could have you guys feel each one of these, because that part is actually pressed into the paper. You can feel it. So that's what makes it different than the rest of this. This is all flat printed in Denver, where they turn it from a sheet of paper into an envelope. But we put on the printing. Here you go. All right, so here's a breakdown of a 2-color job. You get the gold first, and then you print the black part on it next. And when they're layered over each other, they look like that. Pretty sweet. Yeah.
You just got to get it all to line up exactly.
For 3,000 in a row. So yeah, it's a fun process, and using these machines is really great, and just making sure they don't go to the scrap yard and that kind of thing. They're still getting used.
And I think it helped both of our businesses really thrive together, you know, in this part of our story, as you're building a business, it's all about the story and the authenticity of your business. And so for us to be able to letterpress early on and show those pictures and to show how handmade the packaging was, went a long way. Then when we outgrew that, where I couldn't, we were growing a business and I needed to be making more chocolate, and we had the print shop in my parents' garage. And it was so great to be able to have Lynn, who was at that spot where she asked if we needed help, and came along to start running the print shop in my parents' garage, which then you've always kind of had this dream of running a print shop anyway.
Yep. And definitely a print shop outside of a garage, whether it's mine or Steve Taylor's. But so Dustin and Adam did all their printing for the first 5 years of the business. And then I asked them if they needed help. They said yes. So I printed in Dustin's dad's garage for 1 year. And after that, I was like, I think if they paid me a little more, I could move out and find my own space. So unfortunately, in Eureka, we have a lot of warehouses that are zoned for cannabis, and that makes the price just skyrocket. So I couldn't find a warehouse that was suitable for a print shop. So I found a retail shop. And I'm here in the Carson Block building, which was built in 1892. It's a gorgeous Victorian building. It really is one of the keystone buildings of Old Town. And I started out in this space, which is just 1,000 square feet on the side of the building. It's not really the popular side. But I had about 1/3 of this as print shop and 2/3 as retail store. And it did well enough. About 3.5 years, right in the middle of the pandemic, unfortunately, but the space on the front of the building became available, and I took a chance and I moved everything over there. These guys,
everything.
I moved everything over there,
Which involved like taking doors off, removing door jambs, like taking
renting
trim.
forklifts, and
Easy move.
yeah, because each one of these presses and cabinet to type weighs at least 1,000 pounds. These drawers of type behind me, there's 24 to 30 drawers in there. They each weigh 50, 60 pounds, and you have to take each one out, set it aside, move the cabinet, then put all the drawers back in. So it's very laborious. And so anyway, they helped me move everything over there. Being on the front side of the building has been exponentially better, just due to foot traffic and stuff. So we've been able to weather the pandemic. And of course, these guys still going gangbusters with chocolate because people really wanted chocolate and wine and greeting cards, luckily, during the pandemic. So we're still printing their stuff all through that, even though like during hard lockdown, our doors were closed. I was still printing Taylor stuff. Then after about a year of having the print shop and the store in the bigger location on the front of the building, I grew again and I moved all of the presses back into this old shop, the first shop.
Where they were.
Yes. Where I wish I didn't have to move them back and forth, but you never know how things are going to go when you're moving into a bigger space and taking a chance. So I have an assistant printer who does most of the Dick Taylor stuff, which leaves me available to do the design work and the printing for my line of wholesale and retail cards, which is great. But like, we're still collaborating on stuff. Like, you guys don't do those wacky shaped mini bar wrappers anymore, because those were a real pain to print. But they'll just move on to different packaging and stuff. We definitely collaborate
Yeah, for sure.
on stuff.
Yeah, I think one thing that Lynn kind of touched on it earlier, and I think it's been really great. I think that there's certainly this relationship and this commitment that exists between our businesses. And I'm not saying that she was able to start her print retail shop down here because she was working with us, but I think that we were doing a certain amount of volume which was reliable, and she knew, like, well, if everything else goes down the drain, at least there's like these few Dick Taylor wrappers that I'm printing. And so I think that, and I remember that when she came to us and said, I think I'm going to need more money, per impression. And like, and Dustin and I were like, well, yeah, we want that for you. We want to see you, succeed. We want to see your business grow, and we like the job you're doing, so we don't want to lose that. So we also, want to make sure that happens. And so that's been, this great thing, this commitment, this sense of like, we're looking out for you, and I feel, she's looking out for us. But it's been interesting too, because our business keeps growing, and the volume that we're printing, I think you said in your little chart.
Oh, there you go. So
Lynn's got some numbers around.
I've got
this.
some numbers. So where is it? The first year that I printed Dick Taylor stuff, I printed 270,000 impressions for them. And then just this last year, myself and Tyler, my apprentice, printed 462,000 impressions.
So that's a lot of growth. And I mean, from our standpoint, on our business, we've seen certain products obviously kind of are like our flagship, kind of they're our thing. And so we've been looking at possibly other ways to get that letterpress feel on those particular bars. But as Dustin and I are having these discussions, we're like, yeah, but we got to make sure that we don't want to tank Lynn's business because we're going to pull a bunch of stuff. So there's always those discussions that happen. But it's really great because at the same time, Lynn's business has grown and a lot of that's changed. And you have now demands on things that are probably better revenue streams than printing our envelopes. So even though we were thinking, well, gosh, then we might be cutting down the amount of impressions that, you might be doing for us. She's like, oh, well, there's all this other work that could be done. So I think that's another great thing. We definitely think about the people behind, what's going on rather than just making a hard fast, like, well, it doesn't pencil out anymore. So see you later.
Mm-hmm.
There's certainly lots more. And I think that's part of, of having a friendship, but I think also being in our tight knit, close community, being businesses that are similar minded and those kind of things, we really do feel like we look out for each other in a certain way.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we know that there's humans connected to these numbers. It's not just, I don't know, meaningless, pencil on paper.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's lives connected to these things, and like our kids are friends, and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. We're all kind of interconnected. So if something were to happen, we understand, of course, but we'd figure it out because that's what we do.
Could we see if there's questions?
I'm looking at the chat and I'm not seeing anything. They love the packaging.
So I have something. Would you guys please speak on the future for your businesses, like what you envision, like how your business is growing and what kind of paths you want to go? And
Sure, go for it. You go first.
Okay. For us, obviously, we want to continue making the best chocolate that we possibly can. We want to always continue to look at, new and unique cacao origins, different places that are starting to grow cacao, and new farms that are, starting to produce really high quality cacao. So that kind of stuff is, constantly on our, the tips of our, on the forefront of our mind, as well as creating new, bars with interesting inclusions or different flavored ingredients added to the bar. So that's something that we're always thinking of. I think for Dustin and I, probably the most pressing thing is we are currently in the process of remodeling an old building on the waterfront here in Eureka. We're going to move our whole operation down there, largely because Lynn was talking about cannabis prices driving up rents. We were like, well, it's getting a little expensive where we are. So ironically, because the waterfront isn't zoned for cannabis production, it's cheaper to have a building right down there on the waterfront than the location that we're at now. So we're in the middle of a remodel. Dustin and I, with our carpentry background, obviously doing some of the work ourselves, which is a lot of work. But that's, I think, kind of our current push. We want to see the waterfront district in Eureka really revitalize, revive. We would love to see lots of cool activities and just people down there on the waterfront. So that's one thing that we're particularly excited about, and that's what feels like it eats up just about every bit of anxiety that we were able to produce. So
but also in that move, as Adam touched on, the move is a big part of any business, is growing and moving. And now we've moved Lynn a few times, and she'll be able to help us move. Space. But part of, we're at a crossroads in our business, or, really we have a large wholesale side of our business and then a retail side. And where we're located right now is kind of on a bizarro part of Eureka. So it's right on 4th Street. And so we never really thought much foot traffic would come in there, but we built that little shop in there and people have been coming. So we were kind of at this place where we could have just built a metal building and cheap land still in, Humboldt County, but just focus on our wholesale side and have a little tasting room that people have to come find. Or we could, it's much more effort to move down into an old historical building and restore it, as we found, we've been in this process for years now, but growing up here and now being part of, seeing Lynn's business thriving in Old Town, we've really kind of steered our business towards being a destination, putting Eureka on the map, becoming a tourist location. And so we're putting a lot of effort into the design and the aesthetics of this old vintage redwood building that's right on the water. It just ties to our nautical background and love of the waterfront and the history of this area. And so we're trying to keep as much of it historically inclined as possible. And then the cruise ships hopefully will soon start coming into Humboldt Bay. And so
They'll park at your back door, right?
Exactly, they'll park right at the door.
We have a special ramp that takes them right from the boat in.
So we still have our wholesale side is still growing, but we've been putting a lot more effort into the front end and educational tours, big glass hallway to do tours, to try to, be more involved in what's going on down here in Old Town and trying to revitalize this area. So we're, really excited with what Eureka Main Street's doing and tying these businesses together. And so in that new space, a lot more events and stuff will be going on. And so what's happening in your future?
I'm staying put for a while.
Thank you.
So I have probably 3 main prongs of my business. So I've got commercial printing for these guys, and I've pretty much turned everybody else away. Even I'm the only letterpress printer in town, maybe in the county, who takes commercial jobs. And then, so printing for these guys will continue. And then I have the retail store, which is on the front side of the building, and that does great for us. That was the part that I was most surprised about when we moved and set up on the front side of the building, because I never really run a retail store, certainly not in a well-trafficked area. And it's fantastic. We get a lot of tourists in the summer, and we get a lot of locals at the holidays. We get locals year round, of course, but definitely more during the holidays. And then I've got the wholesale side of my business. So I figured if I'm printing cards for my shop to sell, then I might as well print them for other shops all over the country too. So I've been going to trade shows for that and winning some awards here and there.
Tell us about these awards that you've been winning.
Oh, come on, you get to brag too. So the Louis are the Greeting Card Association. This is like the big industry guild or whatever for stationery makers. Everybody from me up to Hallmark is a member. Every year they do these awards, and last year was the first year I entered, and I got 5 finalists, and I actually won 2 of them. And then this year's Louis Awards, I have 3 finalists, and one of them is in the category of Artist of the Year. So I'm very excited about that. We'll find out at the end of April at the next trade show in San Francisco. So yay, don't have to travel too far. Yay, California. So I'm trying to get my cards into more stores, and it's kind of crazy doing all these things at once, but
and then you do
that's
like
how it goes.
art prints
And
too,
then
like full size, like
fine art
poster
prints,
art. Yeah.
Yep.
We have some of those around our house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Large scale art prints, but so you guys have been winning awards for years.
We did. You just got we won a good food award. You just were
Yeah, just showed up in the mail.
Yeah, we've won. We were on a kind of an every other year kick, but we've won several good food awards for various of our bars and in confections as well. We've won awards at the Northwest Chocolate Festival. We've won not lots, but a few Sophies from the Specialty Food Association. So somehow we enter and people like it, which is great.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
We love questions.
I think we could open it up to
So what are some of the most challenging ways to work together? What have been some of the things that you found the most difficult with this business to business kind of work that you do?
I'd say one tricky thing is figuring out growth, in any business. But some days, we run small businesses. If Lynn's sick or out of town, but I need something printed really bad, then I need this bar, because there's always something that pops up. Then luckily I can pop in here to print, but that's growing any business. But really.
Oh, well, come on. Who else do you know who pops into someone else's
No,
business?
but,
to run their machines?
as far as like running out of supplies,
Sure.
if I was better at planning or
Right.
being ahead of the game, but
It's pretty awesome to be able to jump in there when
that
you
definitely makes it.
And both of us are running fairly, I guess, artisan kind of handcrafted businesses, which rely on a crafts person or an actual person to perform the work. It's not like Lynn's out of town, but she could just send the print job from her phone to the printer and it prints out and we come pick them up. So yeah, there's certainly that, coordinating schedules and, with the pandemic and things like that, sometimes you don't have the privilege of coordinating some type of schedule. It just happens for you. So,
Yeah.
So that can be challenging, but I don't think that's necessarily something that's been, prohibitive. Sometimes it's difficult up here, or can be difficult with delays in getting materials and things like that. Certainly can be something that we run into, but a lot of that's also attributed to our missing something or not ordering something in time.
Yeah.
So
We just live so out of the way that everything takes longer and it's more expensive to get here. So,
But it's been really nice with, I really feel like there's very few difficulties so far, as far as stuff that's happening. But one of the pluses is Lynn's shop is only 3 blocks away from our current chocolate factory and even less from our future space. So, we were able to ride our tricycle up here with envelopes and stuff. So it's really nice that we don't need to drive far. It's all right here. So that really helped. I'm glad you put your print shop up close. So.
And how many
Right here on the
staff
street,
do
there's
each
always
of you guys
one.
have?
waving to customers as potential customers as they walk
So
by.
do you have other staff that are working in each of your businesses?
yeah.
Yeah, we have, I think we probably have maybe 20, 25 employees, I would guess, that total, and that counts, office staff and the people that work in the retail and then, production crew and things like that. How many?
And I have 1 full-time general manager and 2 part-time retail associates and 1 part-time assistant printer. And I'm here full-time. So, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's been crazy to hire people for the first time. It's like,
Yeah.
I remember when Lynn started I remember when Dustin and I started, we were just him and I working our, tails off. And then finally, you're like, I don't know, we should probably hire somebody. But then you feel like, well, how come I'm not really paying myself? So how could I afford to hire somebody? That doesn't totally make sense. But eventually you just have to jump in and do it. And sure enough, the numbers, it's magic to me. I don't know how it works, but somehow they're able to produce more and we are now able to pay them and, the business grows. But I remember when Lynn started the print shop, it was just her. She was doing the printing for us and she was trying to run the retail and, front end that she had in this place. And it was a little crazy making. And I remember when she came to us and she's like, gosh, I feel like I need to hire somebody, but I'm not really paying myself. I'm like, I've heard this story before, but we were, we encouraged her. We're like, I don't know, hire somebody. I don't know how it will work out, but it probably will.
yep,
And it does.
it has. Yep. Yeah. I would say we're lucky that we live in a digital age as far as communication goes, because I just text him, hey, I need 3 more boxes of a certain kind of envelope, and he brings them up on the tricycle, like you said, or truck or whatever. But communication is instant, and that's very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that actually is very, very helpful, especially for last minute runs or short things that are, close deadlines, tight deadlines and stuff like that. It's been great working with a local, somebody who's the communication is almost instant is pretty helpful.
Yeah, you guys, oh crap, we're going to a trade show. We need 500 business cards each.
Yeah.
And, you know, I could turn that around in a couple hours.
Yep.
So, yeah.
There were questions, everyone? Yeah. Any questions in the chat, or you guys want to come off mute and ask any questions?
I have a comment and a question. First, I just, you guys have mentioned the tricycle a couple of times, and I just want to say, like, I super enjoyed the holiday chocolate elves tricycle around Eureka video that the Eureka Main Street Facebook page shared. I think I watched it on loop like for 5 minutes because it's just so happy. And my question, so like, kudos on that. It's like fantastic. Downtown centric, very maker, very like California, I feel like branding and marketing, and it's perfect. My question is, I wonder if you guys could talk about any other partnerships that we have with local businesses within the area. If there's any additional ones, I'm guessing there are. So any other partnerships that you guys have and how you feel that's, contributing to either your business or just the movement of economic development, local economic development for the area.
Yeah, I mean, one of my, I guess one thing we could talk about, we've done collaborations now. We've done lots of like local food collaborations, but a couple that are pretty exciting. We've done it now for several years with Humboldt Cider Company. They're like a local kind of small batch hard cider maker, and they do this. It's a chocolate cherry cider, and it's amazing. They take our cocoa nibs and they use that in part of the like fermentation process, and so it gives it this like really nice chocolate aroma on top of this cherry cider. It's just like it reminds me of those little cordials, those cherry cordial chocolates. It was like the liquor bottle, and you bite into it and the juice would come out at you. So it reminds me of that. So that's been really, really fun to work with them now for several years. And it's really exciting when it's finally released. I mean, it sells out really quick. And it's just so delicious tasting. And then
Are the nibs a byproduct?
No, the nibs are actually where the money is. But there's also a lot of flavor there. So that's why they use those. So that's been really neat. We've worked with a local brewery called Eel River Brewing Company, and we've done several different beers with them. Initially, we did a beer. There was a collaboration between us and Humboldt Bay Coffee Company and Eel River Brewing Company. They did this. It was a coffee chocolate stout, which was really tasty. And they may have done that once or twice, and then they approached us and said, "Hey, what if we did a beer and a chocolate bar that could be released kind of at the same time, and that could maybe have some similar thematic flavors in them?" And we do a monthly micro batch bar. It's just like it's a subscription thing. People will they get 2 bars shipped to their house. We decide, every month what this crazy concoction is going to be. Sometimes it's really, really delicious. Sometimes, less delicious, but it's an experiment for us. And it's a way of being creative and just coming up with something. So we might make 800 or 1,000 of these bars, not very much. And they usually sell out halfway through the month. So
vanilla citrus stout.
So we did this collaboration, the vanilla citrus stout with Eel River Brewing Company. We took our milk chocolate, we broke the milk chocolate blocks up and we aged them with hop flowers, and the cocoa butter, the fatty component of the chocolate will tend to absorb aroma. So it takes on the aroma of the hops while not taking on all like that bitterness. So it's really kind of a neat thing. And then we put a little orange essential oil in there, and we released it kind of simultaneously when they released the beer. And so people could come and you can pick up a chocolate bar and get a beer and have the kind of this collaboration, tasting experience. So that was another really cool thing that I think was exciting.
Yeah, and there's been multiples of those, and what they've been great for us, and also it's great for both businesses because we're obviously cross branding and getting our names out to different clientele. So we also did a great collaboration with Cypress Grove, where they did one of their remixes of their cheese, and they used our nibs. And it's great because here's the Cypress Grove cheese that's known and was sent, it's sold nationally, and then it's with Dick Taylor chocolate, and then we, so both of us are cross promoting. We've done collaborations with different coffee shops, really all over in San Francisco and stuff, but locally, there's just a great, it feels like everybody is very open up here for wanting to collaborate. Nobody's like, this is my business, I don't touch your stuff. So we've worked with different distilleries and everybody's very open and excited about it. And craft distillers had a chocolate liqueur that was with our chocolate in there, and that was in the Costco's around and stuff. So cross collaborating with different businesses is a very neat opportunity that works well for both businesses.
I just was looking for the card that I did that has the pattern that they use on their chocolate bars. So I made a thank you card that has their chocolate on the front.
Oh yeah.
And then we didn't mention the collaborations that we've each done separately with Alchemy Distillery, but they will send their chocolate up there to be aged in whiskey barrels, bourbon barrels for a year or two, and then put into bars. And then I've also worked with them on 3 different greeting cards that they sell in their tasting room as well. So yeah, there are definitely some businesses here in town that are more open to working with other businesses and doing collaborations than others. But those ones that are open to collaborations are the ones that you see out in the community. Those are the ones who get the press and, get known locally for just being all around good folks to work with. So.
And one thing that's, I don't know if many people think of it, and maybe I'm giving away like too many inside secrets, but one thing that's really great too about collaborating, I mean, for those of us that have a social media presence, that's a very important and critical part of the marketing campaigns and things that we do. Generating content is a lot of work to have new, interesting, and relevant content. And so if anybody's been leery of collaborating with another local business or trying to do that, it can be a really great way to give you some material to post on social media to keep things relevant. And so these collaborations are great because we have all this new content, pictures, things, ideas we can share. And they're also, the business you're working with, they're doing the same thing on their end. And so it really does have this great multiplier effect through social media, because now all of a sudden you have a little bit more of a reason to post again or a reason to do this, which is really, really great.
Yep, totally.
Yeah, insider tip. Any other questions?
Do you guys have any advice for Main Street directors on ways that they could help foster business to business relationships? Or is there anything that we could be doing to help you better in forming collaborations or something like that?
Right. That's a really good question. I get that. I don't know if I'm giving that, necessarily much thought. I think creating those opportunities for businesses to get together and talk about that stuff, is good. And I'm not sure whether that's sometimes a mixer feels kind of like a little bit of a outmoded thing, but at the same time, I mean, some of those type of hangout events, which have been hard over the last few years. I mean, I get it that stuff has been really, really challenging, and sometimes it's difficult to get people to deeply engage over this a Zoom format. But I think as the health environment or whatever, community health environment starts to continues to change and improve, I think that those kind of things, just getting people face to face, and sometimes just breaking that initial ice of oh, what do you do? What do you do? Oh, we might be able to work together. Sometimes I think that is really helpful.
Yeah, and if the Main Street organization has a presence on social media, maybe they could put it out there just saying, hey, are you interested in collaborating with another local business? Talk to us and we'll facilitate the connection. Because the Main Street organization has their finger on the pulse of all the different businesses and might see who would be a good match together and could make that connection. Rather than the chance meeting in a mixer.
Yeah,
or something.
That's a really good point too. We do have, I know one of the cacao suppliers that we work with is a company called Uncommon Cocoa, and they're really fantastic, and they've got a really great model of supplying cocoa and having transparency throughout the supply chain from farm gate all the way up to the price that we pay for it. So I think that's a really, really great thing. But they all the time, my contact there, I'll get a random email from her saying, we have some customer that's looking for, contract liquor grinding or whatever the thing may happen to be. And she knows, our strength. And so she kind of sometimes brokers those initial engagements. And sometimes they turn out to be something worthwhile. And sometimes it's, a few emails and you realize that it's not a great fit. But that would be, I agree with Lynn, could be really helpful thing for Eureka Main Street. If people were contacting you and you could say, oh, and I know some guys, or I know so-and-so that might be right up your alley, and then facilitate that connection. That could be really helpful.
And do you have any advice for an entrepreneur that is trying to start, reach out to somebody for collaboration or mentorship? Any do's and don'ts?
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Don't just show up. Yeah, I think I
Don't
heard
just
that.
show up. Like send an email, make a phone call.
Yeah.
Make an appointment. Break the ice with an email or something. But yeah, I mean, we get, like any retail store, people walk in and say, hey, you want to sell my cards? I'm like, oh, it's not a good time to talk right now.
Yeah.
So if someone wanted to come in and talk about a collaboration or something, I'd much rather have an appointment than you're like elbow deep in roasting chocolate sometimes. Dustin seems to flit around the factory. So who knows what this guy could be doing,
But I think it's important to think, sometimes that it might be intimidating to think like, oh, well, they might not want to help me out or too small there. But I think that there's, we're all in a small town. We were all there once and we were like, struggling and trying to figure this thing all out. And, I don't necessarily feel like everybody needs to reinvent the wheel every time they want to start a business. But I think, for Dustin and I, Dennis, the owner of Los Bagels, another local business. They have a shop here in Eureka. They also have their kind of original one was in Arcata. And Dennis has been so helpful to us navigating things that we were like, I don't have any clue about how to do this or how this works, or is this a good idea? And he always would bounce ideas off him. And we've done some limited collaboration with Los Bagels, but even beyond that, just somebody who was willing to kind of mentor us and shadow us through just some, to him, they were probably super basic, you just do this every time. And for us, they were like, oh, this seems scary and I don't know about this. So that I think is another way to collaborate too, is sometimes just business mentorship. And it's not like it's not like I'm calling Dennis, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day because I've got all these questions, but it's nice to know that there is somebody who you feel like would shoot straight with you, would tell you what they thought the best, avenue would be. So that kind of stuff.
And also I think looking for, a lot of our, when we're looking is we have a weakness. We want to make fudge pops, that sounds like a great idea. You've got this concept, but we don't make popsicles, we don't have the machinery, but do a scan of locally who does do that stuff. And so, we were able to find this great guy with Peace Pops who makes popsicles. And so we were able to collaborate with him. So I think also know your shortcomings of what you can't achieve. Yeah. And sometimes that naturally creates a collaboration, because you want to tell people about it. And so, we also work with Kenny's Chocolates right down the street, where we're not tooled for doing caramels and chocolates like we'd like to be, but we're just not there. And so then we are able to collaborate with them and just reach out of, I have this need, I have this product I'm trying to make. Would you be into it? Would you just be in, do you want to keep this secret? But most of the time people want to have their name associated with it. And then all of a sudden you've got collaboration that's going on. That's also not just a one-time collaboration for this PR stunt, but it's, you actually needed that product being made and it's helping them as well.
Yeah, I think that is really good. I think Dustin hit on something. I think when Dustin and I started, we were like, we're those can-do people. And so, we bought the printing presses because that was just like how we felt like if we want letterpress, we just have to do it ourselves. And I think, similar thing, like when we started making confections, you know, we're like a chocolate manufacturer. We buy beans and we process them into chocolate and we make them into bars. And like, that's a heck of a lot of work, but lots of chocolate is sold as confections, as treats. And so we're like, how do we start doing that? And so of course, with our can-do attitude, we're like, we'll make it ourselves. And we can do that. We can physically make caramels and we can coat them and it's fine, but we're just not like super efficient at that. And so I think, you know, I think sometimes it takes a little bit of, maybe I'm only speaking for myself, like pride swallowing to say, okay, I'm gonna let somebody else do this part of it. But I think not only does it, I mean, Kenny is doing a way better job at making caramels than we could. He's just really skilled. And so we're like, it's one of those things where like, it's actually better that we're utilizing him and it gives him, you know, some like steady work, and we send him our chocolate and all the ingredients and he, you know, makes the stuff, you know, as we're wanting it. And so that is really great. And so definitely I would also encourage people, don't be so, you know, diehard committed to your, like, I'll do it all myself, to where you miss out on an opportunity, not only to increase production, make a better product, but also support somebody else's business at the same time. I mean, it's, as Michael Scott said, it's like a win-win-win.
Yeah.
A lot of business wisdom from Michael Scott. So.
Yeah, I outsource some of my product to two local printing companies. Times Printing here in Eureka, they do some of our reproductions of my larger work, but they shrink it down to card size. And then Lotus Mountain Printing does our vinyl stickers. I don't have the capability to print on vinyl, so they do it for us and they do a great job. And that's actually our #1 seller in the store right now. You know, it's my images, so I don't feel like I'm cheating or anything, but you know, it's nice to be able to work with other local folks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like kind of
Sounds
that.
like you guys were really proactive in terms of training yourselves and figuring things out on your own. Did you feel like you would have benefited from any formal type of, you know, entrepreneur training or business training to run your business? What about that?
Yes.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I mean, the part of the recreation program at Humboldt State, it's a recreation administration major. So you do have to take a certain number of like business classes.
It was a minor, wasn't it?
Well, I took the few extra classes. Did you get a minor?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. We both have business
There
minor, which I'm like, you know, I don't know if that has helped me out. Or, you know, it's not like I refer back to my, like, the things I learned in college about business. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure sometimes some type of ongoing, you know, education. I've even thought, I took an accounting class at Humboldt State, but I've even thought about taking another one, like a CR or something, just to like wrap my head around these. Because, you know, when I was in school, like all these concepts were so theoretical. They didn't have an application to my life immediately. And now I'm like, oh man, I just eat that stuff up because it's now so applicable and so, you know, daily useful to know these things. So yeah, I could definitely see some advantage to, yeah, like a little, you know, entrepreneurship 101, starting a business 101. I mean, you know, we had like no idea even how you get like business license.
Yeah.
I've taken lots of those classes, and I feel like at this point in my life, with all the other things that are going on with actually running the business and trying to deal with my 2 kids, and you know, my husband's the president of the Little League and stuff. So I mean, like all kinds of crazy stuff is always going on. It's kind of in one ear and out the other, but for the classes and all that back in ancient history. But yeah, there have been some workshops here and there that have been helpful to kind of boost those skills. But man, the early stuff, that info is gone.
Yeah, I know the Small Business Development Center kind of offers more, I think, quote unquote, relevant type of entrepreneurship classes and workshops that might be more helpful to small businesses. And I think our main streets hopefully are connecting to those groups too, to support the small businesses in the area.
Yeah, I kept my wife does the HR for Dick Taylor, and I remember what local like organization she's been working with, but it was really helpful. Lots of, you know, as throughout the pandemic, as you know, masking guidance was changing constantly, vaccination guidance was changing constantly. You know, as you're trying to keep your business safe and also just, abide by like the rules that we're supposed to be doing. I mean, that was, she reached out like weekly, it felt like, to her like local HR professional. I wish I could remember who she was. This is like really bad. But anyway, there are lots of good resources like for that. And those kind of things I think are really helpful too, is navigating like this ever-changing regulation, environment that can be happening. It's really helpful to have some HR, person advising on some of that stuff that has been huge for us.
Especially in food manufacturing.
Yeah. Yeah, that too, for sure. Good questions, really good questions.
Are there more questions?
One more maybe?
So you say some of your micro batches are better than others, right? So I'm just curious, what was the worst that you created?
We can go through
really
one
good.
by
So
one
what's the worst?
and find the really bad ones.
We had some early, we don't make really much white chocolate, if at all, but every once in a while we like to try to experiment with that. We've had some of the earlier iterations of the white chocolate, I feel like we're
Great.
not as good.
I mean, the beauty is chocolate. I mean, no, it's terrible. It's just not, some of them you just hit on better. But, as the ingredients of, like with white chocolate, milk is a big part of its big ingredient in it. And talking local collaboration.
Oh yeah, this is one of my favorite collaborations.
Being able to work with Alexander Farms, who's out of Crescent City and Ferndale down here. And they're just this fantastic farm leading the way. They're the first regenerative farm in the US, at least the US. And they have eggs, grass-fed milk, all this stuff, but they didn't have milk powder. And for chocolate, we need powdered milk. And so finally, they got around to producing powdered milk. And it's the first A2 powdered milk in the world, and
organic A2 whole milk
powder, which we couldn't even get whole milk powder before. So all of a sudden, in our back door, in our backyard was
the best in the United States.
Yeah, it was
It's
amazing. And so then that worked into that, and then collaborating. You throw, we really wanted to be associated with them, and luckily they want to be associated with us. So we're able to put their logo. We're not just saying it's milk powder that's in this chocolate bar, but it's these, it's Alexander A2 milk. So that's a big part of that as we talk collaboration as well, is we're proud of the businesses we're working with. And so we really want to highlight that as an ingredient. It's not just in the ingredient list, but it's this name, it's wherever possible, we want to put a face to the ingredient. And so that was a great one.
So here's one of the early micro batch where they only do a couple hundred to 1,000 or so of these guys once a month just to try out new flavors. And the bee pollen and fennel was such a hit that it eventually turned into a full bar seasonal that we print 2 colors. So
But that was another great thing
been a
about
great one.
the micro batch thing. I mean, it was, when we started making chocolate, we were making like such tiny batches, like 10 pounds at a time. And, now it's grown a lot larger than that. And as you have a larger wholesale business, like this ship becomes slower and slower to steer. You like come up with this concept, you get all the packaging developed, all of that stuff, the sell sheets, and you finally get it to the grocery store shelf. And for us, we've already been thinking about this thing for like 6 months. It feels like this old product that we're already tired of, but we haven't even released it yet. So the micro batch really was a way for us to kind of tap back into some of that early fun of being able to just kind of come up with an idea, do a little experimenting around it, and then make something and let people try it. And the great part about it, like Lynn highlighted, is it was also a way, I mean, it gave us an ability to continue to do some marketing and that kind of stuff. It gave us the ability to be creative, but it also gave us the ability to do like basically test marketing. So we like make these micro batches, and then we kind of wait for the emails that roll back in. And if it's like a bunch of hate mail, we got to brush that bar. But if it's something where people are like, I'm coming back tomorrow to buy 10 more of these things, and you might be onto something where you're like, okay, maybe we'll try to work this into, the regular lineup in some fashion. So has been a really great thing for us to be able to, check all those boxes with kind of one little product.
Does anybody have any questions?
I know it's coffee time of the day.
Well, I
Yeah,
think we're all just kind of like sitting here basking in the awesomeness of
yeah,
stories and the collaborations that you guys have, and just, kind of
wanting
hearing-
chocolate.
Yeah, and wanting chocolate. And there's been a couple of really nice comments in the chat too. So make sure to check those out before you guys tune out. But you're welcome to just stay joined in, but I know you have businesses to run. So
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you. This has been really incredible to hear you guys speak, and really appreciate your time and your commitment to your creative endeavors, and for participating in the conference this year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, we really, feel honored, and we love, we've always loved doing like, not only education about how we got started, but also lots of chocolate education. So opportunities like this are really great. And if we can be an inspiration or some gem or something that we said is like to help somebody through like a, some business issue they're working with, and that's really great. We're always around. You can always send an email to, info@dtchocolate.com, and it'll get funneled to the right person if anybody out there has a more direct
And you
question
guys
or
do
something.
tours too, right? Do you do tours? And you're
We're about to. So we did do tours, and we had tastings and events and all that stuff at our current space. But even before COVID, we ran out of space. And so we've been growing, and so it's been getting tighter and tighter. And then COVID happened, so we stopped tours, but and now it's really full. Carts everywhere. So we're not currently doing tours. We just opened up our tasting room. So tastings back out, so you can try all the different chocolates in our space. And we have glass walls and doors so you can see how chocolate's made. But in our future location, it's designed around tours. So we'll have a big hallway down the center with windows on both sides, so you can just go in and see all the large chocolate production going on both sides. And so that'll be a big part of our new space, will be tours and education.
And hopefully workshops will be coming back soon here too.
That's right.
all right.
I remember all that. Yeah. No, it's funny to think how much of that stuff we used to do regularly, classes and teaching and wine and chocolate, and just so many pairing events and all of these kind of things, origin talks, and
It's alive.
Yeah, Arts Alive. So engaging the public's always been really, really important for us, and definitely something that's been completely lacking really in the last few years. But looking forward to bringing that back.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys so much. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Take care.
All right.